It is 1:40. We now no longer have Councillor Downard with us. We are still awaiting Councillor Clarkson to join us in the room, but everyone else is here. All right, we've got our last motion in relation to the LTP. We've updated all of the numbers, so they are all true and correct and reflect the decisions that have come before.
Where's the tie back from each subsection? A, with an estimated increase in rates revenue of, it doesn't qualify what area of the budget it's coming from. Is there a glossary that says A relates to public transport or B?
No. That's each year. It's total rates revenue.
This is the 10 years.
So
It's the budget.
So you're approving the whole
budget
budget.
For each year of the 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. So everybody's got the numbers. They're all updated. They're on screen. Those who've asked for printouts have printouts. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kneebone. And a second. Councillor Strange. Any discussion?
What's the consequence if we vote against these?
Councillor Dunbar-Smith, if you vote against this, voting, I guess, against the whole LTP. Is that correct? Is that what
Well, there's already decisions, I guess, made around the other elements of the plan. In terms of you've adopted a draft, you've adopted by majority vote the changes that result in this. So, not sure.
You can't really vote against it.
Well, you can.
Well, you're voting against the whole.
No, can I get you to?
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Go ahead. Ben?
Yeah, just the consequences of voting against it. So essentially,
You're voting against
because the decisions have been made, it's necessary, logical to support these. Even though you didn't agree with the 7.4%.
Well, I mean, it's up to you, up to you.
If it helps, I have seen it done in previous LTPs or annual plans where someone who really wanted to be seen to be opposing the rates increase in general would vote against it or abstain. Generally, it was only one person, but they were acknowledging. So, but ultimately, in the spirit of accepting the collective decision, it also makes sense to vote for it.
Just to support Councillor Nichol, I have seen councillors on occasions vote against a total rate strike, even though they've supported some things along the way. But it's, in my experience, it's unusual, and the majority usually vote for it, so it can then go to the end of June council meeting, so we can actually strike rates.
Councillor Kneebone.
Yeah, just my 10 cents. We've gone through the process of having divisions on all those main things. It's recorded. It took us quite a bit long to do that, which I'm fine with. So, you know, you can roll back, you can lean back on that and say, I supported this, I didn't support that. But we've got to have an annual plan, and unless you've got some confidence that we're going to revisit the whole thing, which I think you'll struggle to find, I think we've been elected to operate as a team, you know, so.
Councillor Smith, did you have a comment?
Yeah. I'm supportive of the thrust of the LTP, but I have little, if any, confidence in the out-year predictions. And that may be the nature of the beast, but it's not something that I'm used to, having that level of uncertainty in my prior experience. And I just have reservations about the way this has been done with that lack of certainty. So I'm struggling. Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Councillor Mahuta.
Just similar to Ben's question, should we find that on Friday some unfunded mandates become funded, or some anticipative from the national budget, or other implications? We do the corrected annual plan, or Is that where it would take effect? Like say the NZTA one dropped something that we're totally not expecting or something like that. I'm just trying to identify for myself the risk of, or has it never really happened, Janine?
In my experience, that hasn't happened. In making the decisions today, effectively, you are approving the budget for the long-term plan. In all reality, that is identifying the budget for year one, because we obviously have the opportunity to revisit everything else in the intervening annual plan periods. So I guess the bit that's at risk under that sort of scenario is what might happen in the next 12 months as opposed to longer term, because we can correct for that as we go through.
All right. Okay. I've got a mover for this motion and Councillor Kneebone and a second and Councillor Strange. We shall work our way through the division.
Righty, the motion is on screen. Can you please indicate using your mics whether you support, oppose or abstain the motion? Councillor Graff?
Oppose.
Councillor Nicol?
Support.
Councillor Hodge? Councillor Downard? Not present, current. Councillor Smith? Councillor Cookson?
Oppose.
Councillor Kneebone?
Yes, support.
Councillor Mahuta?
Support.
Councillor Ma?
Oppose.
Councillor Clarkson? Support. Councillor Story?
Support.
Councillor Strange?
Support.
Councillor Dunbar-Smith?
Oppose.
Councillor Hughes?
Oppose.
The votes are 7 support, 5 oppose, 1 abstention, 1 not present. The motion is carried.
All right, councillors, thank you very much for that. Thank you to all the staff who have put in countless hours into getting us through this process. So thank you very much for all your diligence and your commitment. It is much appreciated. And thank you to our CFO for persevering in the face of viral plague. I appreciate it. Okay, we still have another item though, counselors, we still have another item to address. And this is a late, do we need to do anything since this is a late item?
Well, you've got a motion that'll capture all that for us.
Okay. All right, so this, counselors, is the submission for, excuse me, the local government electoral legislation and Māori wards and Māori constituencies amendment bill. You would have noted that a draft submission was distributed via email early this morning. The reason we are having to put this onto our agenda at such late notice is the extremely tight time frame that has been allowed. Closes tomorrow. So we couldn't wait for our council meeting on Thursday. Otherwise, we would have missed the window to provide feedback to central government on this proposal. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Molly. Sorry, did you have a question before we start, Councillor Smith?
I was going to move it that we just do it. Good report, Marley. Short and sweet and to the point.
Thank you. Okay, I will note that we now have a mover, but I just want to give this the due consideration that it deserves. So great. So we've got a mover and a seconder. I am going to go to you, Molly, just to Take us through.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. That's very kind to allow me a bit of time, but I think you did a very good job at summarising key points around the time frame, why this item is being brought to this hui. What I might just touch on is that the submission that is attached to the report emphasises two things: the importance of maintaining the current provisions that support the establishment of Māori wards and constituencies, and also some other aspects that are contained within the bill, such as extending the electoral timetable and improving the voting process. So those are the two key points that are made in the submission. Over to you for consideration. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Marr.
Yeah, thank you, Marley. Do we not need some more commentary around improving that electoral process? You know, I know they talk about going out another 2 weeks and it's still mail out votes and stuff like that. You know, have we done any work or thought about, and I know it's probably too late the way this is going, but just with electronic voting or you know, there doesn't seem to be another suggestion as what might be better or more, you know, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good point that you raise. For the last 2, potentially 3, if my memory serves me correctly, there has been a focus on trying to get an online voting option for the local elections. It was in the past seen as a potentially useful test for then central government elections going forward, but despite a lot of time and effort trying to come up with a system that would work, we basically weren't able to achieve online voting for these purposes because of the security that is associated with online voting. However, it's still a option that national groups are looking into. For example, I know that the electoral reference group that is convened by Taituara will be submitting on that specific point. So they're still keen to continue to go down that pathway and see what might be achieved at some point in the future, including the next local elections. We could include a sentence in our own submission to highlight that this council is, you know, supportive of continuing to look into online options. I'd be happy to add that.
I just think it engages our younger voters and that sort of thing, and it's the way we need to move. Secondary, on the Māori wards, I think this organisation has matured in a big way. We're doing a lot of work with our iwi partners and JMAs and all that sort of thing. And I would throw it, you know, I would be supportive of throwing it out there and actually championing what we've achieved and go to a poll. I think you can sell a good story. That's my view.
We are, but as I understand with this bill, we are not required to do that. Sorry, I do have Councillor Clarkson here. We've got Councillor Clarkson, Hughes, Kneebone, Mahuta.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, reference and observe in relation to LGNZ's submissions recently around this issue and the way that they also connected it to fair representation across the whole region. So we know we're just going through a representation review, and it seems, I'm not sure we've made the point in the letter about this focus on Māori wards is actually missing a broader problem by what the government's trying to do here, because actually the fair representation currently in our region is based on the 2018 census. And so we have a major issue actually that in a number of other constituencies within our region, and we know that the Waiho one was the one that triggered the threshold that caused the decision we made around moving a boundary or proposing to remove a boundary. Actually, there's a fundamental problem across the whole system still. And I think that this current focus on Māori wards is missing some of the other deficiencies within our electoral system. And I totally agree with what Warren's saying about, you see, if we were going to get true feedback in relation to electoral numbers, we need a new way of voting in New Zealand. We actually need to have up-to-date data informing every process that we undertake through the electoral system. And at the moment, you know, I just can't understand why this focus on Māori wards when actually the Local Electoral Act asks us to undertake fair representation and take account of communities of interest, but we're not even doing that properly. It's like there's something fundamentally wrong here. I just think that if we look at the Local Government New Zealand material that was posted up on their website, they did make this key point about why are you focusing on Māori wards?
I suppose that aligns with the remit that we're hoping to take
Absolutely.
to LGNZ, that in order to ensure appropriate representation across all of our communities, we need accurate and timely information, particularly in a region whose population is growing in certain areas and not so much in others. There's a lot of dynamic nature to our
Anyway, I don't think it needs any great tweak. I mean, if you felt that there was a one sentence line about, well, this should be considered in a broader frame or something, I think that would be useful, because I think we do still need to look at the way we're doing it currently.
Great. Well, we've got a thing that we'll take note of the comments here, and I suppose I am looking for a number of people going, yeah. So I see support around the electronic voting. I see some support around broadening the commentary in line with the remit that we're putting forward, that we have timely and accurate information to inform all of our representation reviews. Okay, so I've got Councillor Hughes, Nebo and Mahuta. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't support this. I thank Molly and the team for getting a submission through together at short notice, and I think it summarises the position very well. I don't agree with any of it apart from clause 4. I question why we've got the closing comments in there about the one week time frame, because I'm suggesting that may become the norm in the future rather than the just the exception. And I wonder, I'm asking the question why we're submitting at all. We as a council should be nurturing our relationships with Wellington. We shouldn't be going and opposing everything that they're suggesting and putting on the table. It sends a very poor signal. And I'm happy to support that comment with 3 councillors went at their own expense to Wellington and submitted beyond the deluge to the minister not long after the election, but in December last year. We got an excellent reception and we've had some very positive feedback since. I know our chief executive and the chair have also met with the minister, and hopefully they received a similar positive feedback. So I'm expecting that we're going to get a positive response to that submission. With us throwing negatives at the government all the time, we're going to cut off our own lifeblood in the future if we're not very careful. And you know what happens to a dog that bites its master when it's being fed? It's the end of story. So I'm just warning you that every time we make a negative submission to Wellington, that's a black mark against this council.
Councillor Nebo.
So firstly, just on the additional comments around the electoral system, I guess just thinking about it the last few minutes, I just want to make sure we don't, given that it's not the prime reason for the submission at this point of time. I agree with all the comments. We don't take away the emphasis on the messaging we're sending in. That's all. Because just from what I'm hearing from watching the media the last few days, I'm not so sure that they're going to take too much notice of bits on the edges. That's all. Whether we, just have a think about that one. The only other comment I wondered about for the submission, Marley, and I'm not sure whether to go there or not, so I'll share it and interested in everyone's opinions, is one of the ironies of this is that I see anyway is that the choice as to whether or not you go on the Māori roll or the general roll is up to you. But what the proposal is effectively doing is giving the choice as to whether you can exercise a vote on the Māori roll to the general public. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's quite back to front.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's quite back, it's kind of, and I don't know whether that's too complicated of a concept for some of our friends in Wellington, and I take on board your comments, Chris Hughes, but I don't agree. If we're just going to roll over and be too scared to tell them what they think when we ask for a submission, then we may as well not even bother being here, you know. That's what I think, so anyway, I just wonder we should chuck that concept in.
Your comment, Councillor Kneebone, is similar to one that I think I saw in the recent Waitangi Tribunal report around the majority making decisions on the minority.
Yeah.
And that's basically the point that you're trying to make. So I could try to.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they don't want Māori wards, then get rid of the Māori roll, you know. Let's be honest about it. But they won't do that, but they'll just fiddle away at the edges, you know. I mean, there are I can't remember which partners, but at least one, possibly two of the coalition partners stood candidates in the Māori electoral plans, you know.
In terms of not going too broad, I am, if we're looking at the electronic voting though, I am looking at that point 4, the recommendations in the submission itself, improve election processes to support greater voter participation. I think that electronic voting. Yeah. Councillor Mahuta.
I'd just like to thank Marley and the team for the work they've done. I think the submission is consistent with the position that established the wards all that time ago. I don't think being supportive of this is being anti-government. That's a perception that I haven't, a thing that I haven't formed, because Māori do make up a percentage of our population that we must represent and partner. Even if I wasn't at the table and I challenge council, how would you do that from your seat? So that is a burden that you don't have to worry about, because Kata and I are here. Otherwise, there's a whole constituency that I'm sure people would have trouble reaching. Not for anything else, but we just not in the daily business with each other in any other way. So that's one reason for representation. The other one, particularly for Waikato, when all of the acts that established this type of regional and democratic representation were based on land ownership. 1.2 million acres of my land had already been confiscated. So there's been no equity or way of levelling up until these wards were provided for, because that ownership will never come back, even though we got a treaty settlement, an apology, and a number of other things. The democratic right to represent ourselves in our region of where we belong was taken away a couple of 100 years ago. So correcting it now is the least of it. Kia ora.
All right, any other comments or feedback on the content of the draft? Nope. Okay, we've got a motion that the report submissions on the local government, etc., be received, noting its inclusion as an item of business not on the agenda, which cannot be delayed. The proposed submission was not available when the agenda was published, and the item cannot be delayed due to the timeframe and lodgement of the submission. The council delegates myself and the chief executive to approve the lodgement of the proposed submission. Lodgement of the proposed submission on. There we go. Subject to amendments identified in discussion at the meeting. So similar motion that we have utilized in submissions in the past. All right, I've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? You're opposing the submission, the contents of the submission.
Right, go.
A division's been called. When I call your name, can you please indicate whether you support, abstain or oppose the motion that's on the screen? Councillor Graff.
Oppose.
Councillor Nicol.
Or
Councillor Hodge. Councillor Smith. Councillor Cookson.
Oppose.
Councillor Kneebone.
Support.
Councillor Mahuta. Councillor Ma.
Opposed with the reasons that I think it needs to go out to everybody, contrary to some other councillors' comments.
Sorry, what do you mean? What needs to go out? The submission?
No, what I'm saying is the bill is asking it to go out to the public to make a decision, and that's where I'm basing my decision.
I realize that. But councillors can vote how they want.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this submission is already in the public. Each council in their own right has their own right to do a submission because some agree with Māori wards and some don't. So this is Waikato Regional Council's submission on behalf of Māori wards. Because believe it or not, this council was one of the first councils that approved Māori wards. There's only 3 of us in the whole of New Zealand that are not inclusive in the redemption of Māori wards because we were one of the 3. And I'm happy if you guys are opposing Māori wards, that's all good with me. And I'll go out there and say, hey, it's Waikato Regional Council does not agree with the submission of Māori wards.
Continue with the division, please. I want to continue with the division.
Okay, we'll continue. Councillor Clarkson. Councillor Strange.
Support.
Councillor Dunbar Smith.
Oppose.
Councillor Hughes.
Oppose.
Councillor Story.
Support.
The motion is carried 8 votes to 5.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of your hard work pulling that together at the last minute, Molly. Much appreciated. All right, councillors, thank you again for your attendance, your diligence, your commitment to seeing this process through on our LTP. It is much appreciated. And we've got a few days now spare on the calendar. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to close with a karakia.
And look, just councillors, I'd just like to say thank you for your forbearance in a long, long time and going through the LTP. That you've had to assimilate an enormous amount of information. Just want to thank the staff too for what they've done, and particularly the team that Jane's leading these days to get all the information together. Janine and Dave, thank you with yourself and Leah for conducting the proceedings for us. Just close the karakia. Unahia mai te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia māmā, te nākau, te tinana, te hininaro, e te ara takatu, kua rā e rongo, e whakairia, aki ki runga, kia tina, homi e, hui e, tai ki e.
All right, meeting is closed at 2:09 p.m. Thank you, everyone.